Welcome again to my world of Apothecaria. I'll be updating you on my witch's first week in High Rannoch, and I'll also be drawing some ingredients that she found. Before I get into it, I wanted to introduce my new shiny dice tray. I bought it from Girly Pop Tabletop, and it's the Sage Lily of the Valley Enchanted Dice Box. I just think it's gorgeous. I'm not affiliated with them or anything, I just love it, and I store my nice dice in it. So, in the very first week my witch arrived at High Rannoch, a girl named Charlotte showed up at her door with a case of toad nose, which is like a wart. I planned to draw some of the ingredients my witch found to make a smoothing essence cream to make the wart shrink away instantly. So I got these small pads of Stonehenge brand paper in different types because I thought they'd be perfect to draw potions and ingredients for my inventory cards. Since I'm using colored pencil, I thought I'd try out the Yupo medium paper, which is a very smooth paper. I tried a sample at an art store and colored pencils really glide on the surface. In my previous video, when I prepared the Apothecaria journal, I made these blank ingredient cards. This one I've already filled in with the information for songberries. The entry for these states that these berries are unique to Glimmerwood and they can be found by listening for the singing fairies that flock to them. I had a really hard time thinking about what color I wanted to make the songberries. Eventually I kind of just decided on like a blueberry-esque or like a purplish color. And for the stems and leaves, I just kind of picked some greens that appealed to me. I used the card itself to roughly measure how large the drawings should be, but I should have measured more carefully, as you'll see later in the video. I don't know much about actual botany, but the great thing about Apothecaria is that it's fantasy. The berries are definitely too large to be supported by the stalks like a dandelion. I don't know, maybe the large berries are supported by the magic of the fairies' song. I must have had dandelions on the brain when drawing these because I wanted the fairy to have golden dreads with a green root. I was noticing while coloring the berries and leaves that the pigment was sliding together on the paper, so I couldn't layer as much as I would have liked for her skin tone. I was struggling to get the detail I wanted, especially since the space was so small. Unfortunately, it ended up not mattering much because I had drawn the entire thing too large for the item card. I also completely messed up her skin tone by trying to use alcohol markers, and I had to redraw the whole thing later. But I still like how this little drawing turned out by itself. Despite the lack of depth, I still do like the texture of the pencil markings on the paper, and I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. The next two ingredients that I wanted to draw were driftwood memories and smooth croak mucus. The driftwood memories would require a wand to collect because they're a magic type ingredient, but since I had my familiar with me, I was able to see them and collect them. The entry for these says that the minds of trees are strange and alien things filled with thoughts that last longer than you and I will live. The peace found within those memories can be of great help. For these, I wanted to depict a literal memory of floating that was ethereally surrounding a piece of driftwood. I may have been thinking too literally, but that's one of the reasons why I think solo journaling games are wonderful for artists and designers in particular. I would never think to draw this on my own. Having to conceptualize what the memory of a piece of wood would look like is just the kind of thing that stretches my creativity and makes me work to translate a concept visually. I'm actually not very happy with what I came up with for this, but it does work, and I've been really trying to combat my perfectionistic tendencies. Perfectionism is antithetical to fostering a consistent and sustainable creative process, but even though I know that, I can't help but nitpick. I'm mainly using solo journaling games like this one to substitute for a sketchbook. It might seem like a given that a full-time artist has a sketchbook practice to grow their skills, but I'm ashamed to admit that I actually don't have one. I mean, I've got plenty of sketchbooks, but each one only has a few pages filled out, and I've never actually finished one. I actually had to stop looking at other artists' sketchbook tours because I would get so demoralized and upset about my own work, or lack thereof. But with the solo journaling games, for some reason, using these prompts and having a kind of self-set objective within the context of a game really helps me to just get going and not worry as much about the outcome. I can try new mediums and tools and experiment with ones I've used before to reacclimate myself with my own supplies. Starting on the smooth croak frog was interesting because I've never drawn a frog before. The entry for it in the rulebook states that these colorful frogs are so unbelievably smooth that I had to put up signs reminding visitors not to stroke them. Sure, it makes your skin baby soft, but it really hurts the frog. Use wet gloves for this one. Since they're colorful, I kind of wanted to have like a base that was river rock colored with a bright green mossy quote-unquote top that would act as camouflage for the frog in this theoretical setting. I think it's really adorable when small animals look angry, so I kind of made him look angry. I'm not sure why, but this piece of Yupo paper started to reject the color on some parts of the frog. I'm not sure if it's some quirk of manufacturing or if I did something to it by drawing on top of it. At this point, I just kind of figured that I would color him in as best I could. At this point, I started furiously trying to fill in those blank spaces by pressing harder, but it actually lifted even more color off of the frog, so I was really struggling. I was pressing so hard that the pigment started balling up, but I thought it looked enough like moss, so there's that. I tried to hide it maybe in like a very smooth reflection by erasing part of it, but I don't think it translated very well. I felt that it could hardly look worse, so I used an alcohol marker to color on top of it, and to my surprise, it layered smoothly on top and deposited a vibrant color. I ended up loving the final result, and it is a huge difference from before the alcohol marker. So yeah, this is what became of my poor Songberry fairy. This is the redraw with the fairy just as more of a ghostly suggestion in the background. I just didn't have the heart to draw the same one again and then mess it up again. Something that really impacts me is that I have both energy limiting and chronic pain conditions. It's a huge part of why these videos tend to release so sporadically and why I'm not as active as I probably should be on social media in general. And of course, it affects every aspect of my life, including my artistic work. Every artist gets demotivated at the thought of spending hours and even days on something just to end up with an ugly or unsatisfying result. But for me, it's also kind of like salt in the wound, because spending that time and energy on something means that I've probably had to ignore, or at least severely put off, things that I need to do in order to better pace myself and manage my energy. I understand that time is linear for everyone and that time management is part of any activity, but for people with energy limiting or other disabling conditions, time and energy management in general becomes much more challenging. It's kind of like buying things. For example, if a millionaire and a fast food worker shop for the exact same things at the grocery store, it'll cost each of them $200, say, to purchase the items. But for the fast food worker who makes minimum wage, that loss of $200 affects their life both in the short and long term much more than it would affect the millionaire. In the same way, the energy I spend and the way I spend it as a disabled person affect me more intensely than an able-bodied person. This has really negatively impacted my perfectionistic tendencies. When everything I do has to be so carefully budgeted, the end result feels like it matters so much more. I put a lot of pressure on myself to, quote, make the time worthwhile, end quote, whether that be the gain in skills or the potential to somehow use that thing that's produced. Making ugly art doesn't feel useful or pleasant, so it makes sense why I don't want to do it. But it's absolutely necessary to make ugly art in order to someday make beautiful art. And so not everything needs to be or should be quote-unquote useful. I'm still unpacking all these things, and solo journaling games have really been helping me to make headway in that department. Plus, they're very accessible to me since I can play them in bed, typing if I'm experiencing some muscle weakness, and they're relatively inexpensive. All this to say, I really enjoy playing my games and using them as a tool for my artistic and personal development. I think they're really accessible, and I want to help more and more people discover this hobby. To that end, next week I'll be opening up my Patreon and a Discord. I'm still working out the finer details, but in return for being a supporter of the channel and my artistic work, members will be enrolled in a fun snail mail club and get access to player aids for solo TTRPGs that I make for myself, stuff like the template for the item cards here. I'll also proudly add a shout out at the end of the videos and a way for members to vote on solo tabletop topics that they want me to cover next. I'll be uploading a video sharing the snail mail items for July, as well as providing the link and explaining more about the Patreon tiers. So if you're already subscribed here on YouTube, you can hit the notification bell and be notified when I drop that. But even if you can't join my Patreon, just know that just watching the videos and subscribing to my channel here on YouTube is immensely helpful and very supportive. I love interacting with people that comment on my videos, and I'd love to know even more about what you guys want to see in regards to either my art or solo TTRPGs. Also, the relaxing background music and sound effects that have been playing in this video are part of the actual Apothecaria soundtrack, which was also made by Anna Blackwell, that comes with the PDF version of the game. I got a little starstruck when I messaged her asking if I could use the tracks, and she said yes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this very chatty video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!